Over the past few years, everything has changed. Where and how we work and live, the way we collaborate and measure success, and the emerging technologies we use to get it all done. Welcome to The Bridge. Join our host, Scott Cochran, in a series of discussions with top leaders in technology and learn about how they bridge their lives and their businesses into our new hybrid work and AI-driven reality. Our hope is that the insights and experiences will help you on your journey in business and in life from who we were to who we are today. And maybe it'll help you get better prepared for whatever comes next. The Bridge is a service of Bridgepoint Technologies, the nation's leading IT advisory firm. Bridgepoint helps business leaders evaluate, procure, implement, and manage technology and customer experience solutions with a focus on realizing sustainable results for your business growth. And now, here's your host, Scott Cochran.
Okay, IT leaders, when optimizing your hyperscale cloud expenses, there's a massive difference between workload optimization and rate optimization. We put tons of effort into the performance of our workloads in an effort to control usage, but far less attention is paid to how much we pay for that usage. And we're not talking about the instant size we buy. We're talking about the small incremental changes that can be accomplished algorithmically throughout the day to ensure that you are paying less for the usage that your workload generates. Even if you've got a team of engineers focused on performance, I hope you'll stay with us for this full episode of the Bridgecast with Chris Cochran. He's the founder and CEO of ProsperOps, and he believes that you are likely leaving money on the table. And before we get into that, we have to ask for your support. If our discussions with IT leaders and visionaries is helpful as you think about your business, please be sure to hit that subscribe or like button wherever you're getting this content. Comments and 5-star ratings are always appreciated. But let's get to it. Chris Cochran, CEO of ProsperOps, here on the Bridgecast. Well, hi, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Bridgecast. I'm thrilled to have as my guest today, Chris Cochran, who's the CEO of ProsperOps. You may not know who they are, but it's a super cool company, and you'll hear more about that over the next 30 minutes or so. But before we do that, let's dispense with the demographics and some intros. Chris, first off, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Hey, Scott. It's good to be with you. Calling in from Austin, Texas. It's in the mid 80s right now, quickly heading toward the low 100s. So, stay cool. That's the goal here in Texas right now.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. I've got a little history myself in Austin. I was one of the co-founders and the CTO of a company called Evolve IP that purchased a small, I would say, integrator help desk company in downtown Austin. So I've made that trek from 8th and Brazos to 5th. It was like 4 minutes to get from your desk to a margarita. It's dangerous in downtown Austin. Where are you in Austin, by the way?
Just west of the UT campus, just north of downtown.
Gotcha. Are the Austinites? I don't know if it's an Austinite. Are you still calling yourself Silicon Hills there?
I don't think really anybody from here uses that term. Yeah. I mean, I think we have an aspirational tech scene here in Austin. It gets a lot of great press. I think everybody on the ground here would say there's a lot more to do, a lot more to go, and I don't think we're at a status where we're using monikers to designate the region. We'd love to get there, but not so much.
You guys will help them get there. Who else? Just refresh me. Who else? I know Dell's there. I believe Electronic Arts is there. Any other notables?
It's interesting. Austin sort of has this barbell effect with businesses. You've got a lot of sort of very small, almost think about it as pre-product market fit startups. And then you have a lot of outposts from the larger companies, the Googles, Facebooks, it's EAs, et cetera. A few companies sort of in the middle, people like Q2 that are sort of in a couple $100 million ARR. But obviously I think that's where Austin is trying to move to. How do we build up more of those high growth companies that are, growing fast, couple $100 million ARR, on their way to the next chapter. And I think that's what everybody's trying to do here in the region.
Got it. Well, we'll explore maybe a little bit of that about being a tech entrepreneur as we get towards the end of the episode, because you clearly did that. I mean, you guys were a pre-revenue startup at 1.6 years ago also. And here you are. Tell us a little bit about, before we get into ProsperOps directly, anything else about you personally, kind of background, family? What else can we know about you personally?
Yeah, no, pretty boring. Native Texan, got 2 kids, a wife, and a Great Dane. That's about it. Go to Colorado for the summer because it's too darn hot in Texas.
Got it.
That's
And
there's me in 5 seconds.
I get, and you have a history also at Rackspace. We've had some other Rackspace folks on the show. They're a partner as well of Bridgepoint. You were there for 8 years.
Yeah, really formative experience. Rackspace at that moment in time, sort of pre-cloud, post sort of DIY data center. Rackspace really had its moment in the sun. I was very fortunate to be part of that. We were a couple $100 million at that time, going to a couple billion, and what an amazing learning experience, and really a great culture. About as good as I've ever seen one, and certainly aspects of it are what we're trying to replicate at ProsperOps.
Yeah, fanatical support, right? That was the
Fanatical
big thing
support
back
all
then.
the way, for sure.
I mean, I did find that story interesting, and I think it's a great parlay into kind of what you're doing at ProsperOps and why you founded it. But not to wax ecstatic about your history with them, but I mean, I felt like they were one of the first people to go like, maybe you shouldn't just be doing stuff for the sake of doing stuff. Like it's got to be supportable. It's got to be something that's, comfortable and can help a business grow. And you're coming out of that culture. And from there, you sort of founded ProsperOps. So tell me the story, like what sort of led you to do it? What was the market need you were trying to fill? And then just sort of give us a little bit of where you guys are today.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so just the backstory is actually it absolutely involves Rackspace. Rackspace as the world sort of transitioned to cloud, Rackspace understood that, saw that, had its own cloud, and for many years, competed lions in the hyena style against AWS with varying degrees of success. And I had been running one of the enterprise units, and we ultimately saw at the time that the market was shifting and customers really valued the cloud. At the time, largely it was AWS, the cloud products from folks like AWS, but the services from Rackspace. And so, my last assignment there as the SVP was to go and stand up a cloud services business at Rackspace around AWS and ultimately Google and Microsoft. And, we did that. It ended up being a great business for Rackspace and all the cloud providers. I think from that, we saw something that was pretty important. Rackspace's ethos was sort of to elevate the human and arm them with the best tools and technology available. We called them rackers, and turn those rackers loose on helping customers, do more in the cloud. And that approach is really good. I think one of the things that occurred to us and ultimately, was part of what helped us figure out ProsperOps was that while humans are absolutely critical to a lot of the cloud optimization, cloud migration questions, there are certain use cases where automation and algorithms can do things that a human can't do. And it's not just sort of like trading, hands for ones and zeros, but, sophisticated algorithms can see things and solve problems in ways humans can't. And you can get really great outcomes, and you can do it faster. So the idea with ProsperOps was to say, how do you end up going and using technology to deliver and solve lots of these problems where technology can do things that humans aren't yet able to do? And that was a little bit of sort of the inspiration for ProsperOps.
Got it. And it doesn't necessarily, from my understanding of the business, it doesn't replace the hands. It's really optimizing largely on the financial side. I've heard you referred, and maybe this will make you cringe or maybe you'll agree, kind of as a fintech solution. What's one, maybe you could say that that's not an appropriate moniker. That's fine. But if you do, how do you differentiate sort of the FinOps side of hyperscale management versus real kind of like more along the lines of workload optimization sort of hands work? Tell me a little bit about that difference.
Yeah, look, I think if you just pull back in the broadest level, there's sort of two types of zip codes when it comes to cloud optimization. There is the financial side, or if you follow, there's a FinOps Foundation, which is awesome. They're sort of the trade association for this emerging discipline. They'll call it rate optimization. Okay. But largely what it's code for is how do you pay less for what you use? Mm-hmm. There's a second zip code, which is probably what most people sort of think of by default, which is called usage or workload optimization. And that's more about using less things. That's an engineering initiative. And the companies that are crushing FinOps are doing both of those things concurrently, and they're doing them well. We started off focused on that pricing problem, that rate optimization problem, because what we knew is that algorithms are actually the right way to solve that problem. You've got dynamic usage patterns, and you're trying to figure out in a given moment in time, is there some type of change that could be made to allow the customer to pay less? And so that was a problem that was very much given to a algorithmic solution, and it very much complements the workload or usage optimization work that engineers still are absolutely critical to do. Their knowledge of the app, their understanding of how changes to the architecture are going to ultimately change or impact performance and scalability, that stuff is still critical. So we think about, broadly, how do you think about FinOps and break it up into those dimensions where automation can give you acceleration and lift versus places where the human insight is still critical, and how do you use those in a way that you get sort of the additive effect. And so that's sort of how ProsperOps thinks about the world. But the net of it is that if you go back 10 years and prompted an engineering team about how much waste they thought was potentially out there in their cloud spend, they would tell you it would be about 30% plus or minus.
Yeah.
And if you asked them 5 years ago, they'd say it's about 30%. And if you asked them 1 week ago, they'd say it's about 30%. So, our provocation is when you apply automation liberally to the things where it can go and make a difference, that's part of the equation to start chipping into that 30% waste problem. And that's ultimately the company we're trying to build.
Got it. And I think it's interesting if you ask that question, if you ask that question in the way you posed the differences, I wonder if you would still get the 30% answer. Meaning, and what I mean, you made a differential between what you pay and how much you use, right? And I think, and you're totally right. When you get a crackerjack AWS engineers like, my app is clean, like it performs perfectly. They're only really dealing with, the latter, not the former, right? In that regard. Are they answering that question when they say 30%, really just thinking about app performance and usage more so than what they're paying from a rate perspective?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't know the answer. My suspicion is it's the all-in estimate that includes lots of different optimization tactics. And I think, generally lots of the engineers and, we end up, our buyers tend to be VP engineering, CTOs, directors of DevOps, et cetera. And, generally they will be thinking, it's their default condition to think about the architecture and the engineering, et cetera. And what we found in general was that the pricing element might be secondary in the equation. But what's interesting about fixing pricing is that you can do it in a way where it creates very low dependency on your engineering work. And so, if you can basically go and address pricing, and it can really move the needle on your cost savings, and it doesn't create dependencies with your engineering activities, you can really free up lots of dollars today while you're continuing to sort of work through your engineering agenda. And, we've not met many engineering teams that are just nailing it shut in 40 hours a week. Yeah. So there's way more work to be done than there is time to do it. And, our argument to a lot of these teams is, how do you make sure you divide and conquer? You use technology where it can give you lift. You put your cycles against the things where your knowledge, expertise, et cetera, is critical. And that's sort of the magic combination.
I get it. So, I get conversations all the time about this, the auto-magically, right? Like, a crappy application is going to be crappy in the cloud or on a server running in your data center. Conversely, if it performs well locally, it's going to perform well in the cloud from a usage perspective. Let's just take that off to the side for one moment. If you're listening to this episode and you feel like you've got your workloads entirely engineered perfectly, they should still listen on, right? I mean, that's the headline so far, because we're going to get into that next point. When I first met your team, and I had a healthy bit of skepticism. I mean, I've been working in the cloud for a long time. I was super impressed with just how easy it is to begin inspecting the way that their performing workload is consuming assets and pricing, and how quickly you can get to a potential savings to understand if the service is going to work. In fact, you have pricing models that are largely just based around the savings, right?
Yeah.
Can you speak directly? I think this really will bring it home for folks who are in this space. Like, how do you turn your stuff on? Like, how do you find the number, and how quickly can they get to an idea of whether there's a rate optimization opportunity?
Yeah, it's a great question. So when we started the company, there was really no metric that allowed you to understand on a relative basis how you were doing. And we created a metric at the time called effective savings rate, and it's now used widely across some of the different cloud management platforms, et cetera. But really, what the metric does is it helps you understand your return on whatever price optimization strategy you're running. And we've now benchmarked this across thousands of different data points and users, et cetera. And rate optimization or price optimization is actually something that's very much given to a benchmarkable metric, which I know leadership loves. And when you look at the data, what you would see is that across all cloud optimization teams, the 75th percentile is generally getting about a 25% discount off of the on-demand price from a cloud provider before they apply whatever private pricing or enterprise discounts they get from the cloud provider. So 25% off of list. And when you are running a rate optimization strategy that's backed by automation, you can drive that effective savings rate up to 50+%. And so a part of what we do when we go and talk to a prospect is immediately try to just get to the numbers so that we're not having a qualitative conversation on whether you're doing well or whether you're not doing well. Let's just look at the trailing 12 months of data, and let's calculate what your effective savings rate has been. And then if we overlay algorithms against your own data and calculate what your effective savings rate could be, you can then go and say that translates into X incremental dollars per month or Y incremental dollars per year. And so we try to take the whole rate optimization conversation out of the subjective into sort of a very quantitative, objective dimension about value. And we'll always show that to you, incremental value net of our charge. So it really is trying to get down to sort of a no BS total cost of ownership, what you're doing today, the results you're getting, what a provider like ProsperOps could do for you net of our charge. And if we can't do better than you economically, you probably shouldn't be a customer. Yeah. But the whole point is try to dimensionalize it in economic terms, value terms, and help people arm themselves with sort of relative benchmarking and trend data to make an educated decision. So that's a big part of our go-to-market process. We try to do that literally after the first introductory meeting. How do we get to the data so that you can see the numbers and then either fish or cut bait?
And the customer does not, what's their responsibility in helping you get there? Do they just need access to your admin or their admin, give that to you and you can pop in what you need? Like what?
Yeah, we have a very narrow permission. All of our team are sort of ex-enterprise software and rack space type folks. So, we've developed very narrow permissions that look very specifically at sort of what your trailing cost and usage data says. That's all. We don't access servers. We don't, look at things we don't have to. We have a very narrow set of permissions. And so literally, if a prospect were to add that permission to their cloud environment after having this, DevSecOps team review it, we could literally be on a call the next day, looking at your trailing 12-month history, understanding what your effective savings rate trend looks like, where you are benchmarked against peers, and then more importantly, what would automated rate optimization or discount management incrementally do to understand the economic value. And so, 24 hours is largely it's literally an hour of someone's time over a 24-hour period. It's totally low lift. And, candidly, it's sort of a no regrets proposition for an hour of investment just to gut check your rate optimization strategy. Are you in the 90th percentile? Are you in the 50th percentile? And what's the value of being better? So that really is how we try to structure that very fast analysis to put it in economic terms.
So I'm going to put you on the spot, Chris. You've been doing this for 6 years now. You've grown from, pre-revenue idea into an established business, now in the channel, partners with Bridgepoint. We work together. What's the number normally look like? Like if you go in without real thinking around the rate optimization side, what are customers typically seeing?
Yeah, I mean, just think about this. Let's just say you had $1 million of monthly usage. I'm using usage. Just think about that as like $1 million of consumption at the on-demand rate. And your prior strategy was getting you that 25% effective savings rate. That would be basically a $250,000 of savings. But if you could take that effective savings rate up to 50%, that's $500,000. So you pick up an extra $250,000 of monthly savings for every $1 million of usage. So just to give you a ballpark of the magnitude, and that's that, and it varies by company. Some companies have highly volatile workloads where there's dynamic patterns changing on any given moment. Some have less volatility, but order of magnitude, doing rate optimization well is probably one of the easiest bang for the bucks that you as an IT leader can make sure you've deployed in terms of low technology dependency or low engineering dependency and speed to impact.
Well, that's amazing. And I just love the story. You saw a need, you were working, I believe there were some jobs in between, but you had a lot of history. One of the stalwarts in the industry. You saw a problem that could be solved algorithmically, started your company. Let's just talk. I got to ask you, tell me about that day where you were like, Hey, honey, we're just going to do this. I'm going to take a crack at, I mean, you're in a market where there's certainly some, there's a propensity towards investing in early stage businesses, and there's an environment around that. But tell me about starting a company, and what's kind of the lesson, if there is one to be shared around, grabbing that idea and getting started.
Well, Bridgepoint's founder led still, is that?
Yeah. So
your firm probably understands this just as well as everybody. And you were a founding partner of a firm as well. I think, for me in particular, my two partners, Eric and Chris, who I had a chance to work with, basically the work we did at Rackspace around building a cloud services business. It was Chris, Eric, and me who started that business at Rackspace. And so, I had a lot of time, large part of that 8 years I was at Rackspace had interacted. And, when you're thinking about going into business with folks, understanding how people operate in good times and bad times, and, knowing when things go sideways, are they going to freak out? Or are they going to be a steady hand? We had the benefit of having experienced that together in a prior life. And so when it came time to start ProsperOps, and Eric and Chris, our chief product officer and chief technology officer respectively, are, I think, just brilliant. And the optimization work that we do, I think they are literally top in the world. They're in the top 5 people in the world, they would be in that zone. Mm-hmm. And so, going and starting with folks that you've had pattern recognition with, who are absolute perfectionists, and then really craftsmen about what they build and how they think about architecting solutions for customers. It was sort of risky, but it really wasn't that risky. Mm-hmm. I just had all the confidence. And so all of that just goes back to, who you decide to partner up with. And I feel like that's really made all the difference. All credit to those two folks who are just absolutely top notch.
Amazing. So, go on the journey, but go on the journey with people who you're accustomed to standing next to, right?
Yeah. And, we also started, we started our company when I was in my mid 40s. So we had been in the space, we had basically a couple of decades of experience in the space, which I feel like, gave you some context that if, you were a true entrepreneur out of the gate in your 20s, hacking it out in your garage and, the jungle, you wouldn't have had. But, we ended up going into a space where we had a lot of pattern recognition and then a lot of trust amongst us. And that was, that was useful.
I love the context that you just gave. I sometimes ask a fun question that I think is a great parlay for this. So I'm going to do it. Even going into that with some experience, you now have you've got the Monday morning quarterback opportunity to look back at what you've done over this time frame. What's something that you know now that maybe you didn't know even in your 40s when you started this thing, that could be a helpful tidbit of advice for maybe that entrepreneur in their mid 20s who's trying to figure it, help them jump 2 generations, or 2 decades of knowledge, and think about their company the right way as they're starting.
As you and I were, as part of before we started, we just talked about everybody. There's no playbook, right? Everybody's experience is so I certainly wouldn't want to suggest that we figured anything out. But I think the one thing that I look at, and one of the many mistakes that I made, was that we sort of effectively bootstrapped our company from the beginning, and we were always very focused on trying to become profitable versus sort of following the venture capital route. And by the way, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just what we had done. And so every dollar we invested back in the business, we were like, man, we got to make it work. And so we were probably, my fault, way too conservative early on, going out there and trying to actively grow the business, actively market the business, hiring salespeople, all those types of things. I think we waited a couple of years to hire our first seller, who's still with us, because we just wanted the playbook to be right. We wanted to basically do it right for prospects and ultimately customers. And we wanted to make sure we sort of figured it out before we tried scaling the business, because we'd seen so many friends and colleagues that tried to start scaling the business before they had a playbook. And, sometimes things go sideways. And we didn't want to do that. So we went to the other side of the pendulum and probably were way too conservative when earlier on we should have seen, hey, there's lots of value you can provide here. Go ahead and start investing, because there is a there for customers. And I think we should have hit that decision point faster than we did.
Yeah, Chris, and I think that, it's funny. I've got similar history. I'm in a founder-led business now after a PE, investment. I started a company before that. So there's always this is the crux of the argument, really, right? At the end of the day, I think a lot of it is based on sort of what are you building a company to operate, or are you building a company to sell IP? You guys could have easily just been like, let's get the algorithm right and see if it can get bought by any number of people who already have optimization software, versus going, we're going to build this as a service provider to operate. Here you are 6 years later operating your business. I think that clarity of vision really in a lot of ways helps to dictate that balance too. I hear you on the conservative nature, and I've been in multiple businesses, including frankly my last one, where man, we could have gone faster if we didn't care so much about being profitable up front. But now you look at companies, stalwarts in the industry, who are struggling with valuations because they're public. It got a bunch of people rich early, but now you're operating the business. And, hey, is this a model that actually churns profit? I don't know. You know what I mean? Or creates profit. It's a super interesting story. Let me ask you 2 more fun questions while we have a couple of minutes. I just need a shameless prediction of some kind from you. Doesn't need to be about the business. Doesn't even need to be about tech. I just want to look back on this episode in 12 to 18 months, or maybe the next time we're on the show together, and look back on that shameless prediction and say if you were right. So you throw it out there.
Is there anything going on in the world right now? I'll probably stay away from all that. No,
maybe geopolitical items notwithstanding, right?
Exactly. It's the biggest thing, I think, maybe a derivative of your question. I am still trying to figure out, the AI cure looking for some disease. And I am bearish today, but I am bullish tomorrow. I obviously that's when I'm interested, just as someone who's trying to operate a business. how do I use those capabilities to, augment what my team can do, to do things we're not doing today. And, obviously I've just sort of been watching all of the discussion about it. And, the solution is AI. What's the problem, And so my suspicion is we're going to get through the hype cycle. Maybe that's what's happening in the market as we speak today. But ultimately we will find some of those use cases where it actually is the right solution for a particular disease to be named. Yeah. And I'm waiting for that day, but I'm waiting with bated breath for that day.
Yeah, I mean, it's come up a bunch in episodes over the last 6 months. It feels. I mean, here you are in a business that is an automation business around cloud, right?
Yeah.
We spend a ton of time at Bridgepoint, in our data center and cloud business, of which you guys are, becoming a more important part of the portfolio every day, helping people unwind a situation that is very much like the one we're talking about now in AI, right? Which is just like, board level edicts of go get some, because, our investors want to know what our AI strategy is. Like, we get it, but you're right. We definitely are, those who don't understand history are sometimes doomed to, to live it again. We may be there with AI. We may be doing early cloud all over again, right?
Yeah.
Yes. And it's a warning I throw out there. So we will look back on this, but I'm with you. I like the way you said it.
Most
We're looking
predictors
for the disease. We have the cure. We're just trying to find the disease right now.
Yeah.
Some of this
and look, like most predictors, I'm probably wrong. So we'll come back and we can put the finger on it.
Your opinion has been shared by others on this show, so I think it's probably not a stretch. One last fun one. We had a pandemic. We've had all kinds of crazy things. We giggled a minute ago about geopolitical issues. Let's just say that the next, great world-ending thing happens. Skynet finally descends, and we all realize that the robots are running the world, whatever that is. And you have one app that's still working on your phone, only one. What would it be? What's your choice of survival app?
Well, it's a guilty pleasure. I mean, it's got to be Twitter. It's got to be X, I guess. It is my guilty. Just watching the meltdown from whatever constituency is melting down over whatever topic. I'd probably be passively watching that till the bitter end.
So it's entertainment value, and while it may all not be accurate, the timeliness of potential news coming at you,
yes.
New York just fell. You'd be good to see that on Twitter, right? As Skynet's descending, right? You would know what's going on because you're probably not getting it on the major news stations at that point, right? We've had all kinds of answers to that question. One day,
what's the best answer? By the way, I feel like I played that one down the middle, but it's actually what I would probably be doing, wasting a lot of time. But what is like the best answer you've heard so far?
I think flashlight.
Okay.
Like, if nothing else works at that point, I better be able to have light in the evening.
Yeah.
You know what? Not a bad idea. There's lots around GPS, right? I mean, people think about it different ways. We've had some people amend their answer, like, I need my ESPN app. Oh, wait a minute. We're not playing games anymore at that point. Like, that kind of thing, right? Yeah. It's an interesting question to ask. But Chris, this has been an incredibly informative 32 minutes. For those who may be interested, obviously, your friendly neighborhood Bridgepoint advisor is available to help, not just on the optimization cost side, the fintech side, and working with ProsperOps, but also in optimization, in repatriation, wherever that is. Chris, you guys have become a big part of our story. We're really enjoying working with your team, and I'm looking forward to having you potentially again on the bridge at a future date.
Yeah, all feelings are mutual, Scott. It was great being on. Appreciate it.
Fantastic. Great talking to you today.
All right, you too. Have a great day.
You got it. Listen, if you made it this far, there must have been some good content, or you're just a fan or a relative of mine. In either case, we appreciate you spending your most valuable asset with us, your time. We don't take that lightly. We'd also like to say one more time that we're appreciative of Bridgepoint Technologies and their belief and sponsorship of this show. We hope that if you or someone you know is thinking about your company's digital transformation, or simply the next IT project that you may not have the resources, budget, or time to get to, I'm sure that Bridgepoint, one of the country's fastest growing technology advisory and procurement firms, can help. Check out bridgepointtechnologies.com Don't forget the E on Bridgepoint, or simply reach out to me at Skinka, SKINKA, at bpt3.net. Also take a minute, please, if you would, to give us a 5-star review on your favorite platform. It helps give us the visibility to reach other people like you. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Bridge. I'm Scott Kinka, and until next time, there's a lot of noise out there in business and in life. Do what you can to be the signal. Thanks.